Alfred Hines, a burglar and safecracker from London's East End who gained folk hero status as a prison escapee, died back in 2013 at the age of 73, leaving behind a fascinating history of defying the law and earning the nickname Houdini Hines. Leading a life of crime, Mr. Hines was forced to teach himself law and argue his cases in 17 court appearances. From time to time, he would even make his arguments public. For instance, while on the run, he sent letters to newspapers asserting that he had not taken part in a furniture store robbery, for which he received a 12-year sentence in 1953. In 1955, he escaped from prison by copying a key to the jail workshop after memorizing its shape. So it was pretty obvious for everyone at the time that the man wasn't going to let himself be easily confined. Although his most famous escape was from a prison, he didn't shy away from escapes of any kind. For instance, history still recalls the moment Mr. Hines escaped from 2 prison guards while at a court in London in 1957. When he was taken in for a hearing for directions before Master Grundy, 2 prison officers escorted him to the bathroom near the Bear Garden. But when the officers removed his handcuffs, Hines padlocked the warders inside with help from his brother Albert and his then friend Tony Mafia, in a move so dramatic that you would expect to see it in a movie. Hines enjoyed his freedom as he escaped into Fleet Street and off to Waterloo, but he was soon recognized and caught at Bristol Airport 5 hours later while waiting for a plane to Dublin. Despite his dangerous tangos with the law, he earned his fame by publishing a recount of all his escapes in a novel titled Contempt of Court. Edi Villalobos Jr., a man accused of second-degree murder who bolted from a Washington County courtroom during a break in his trial last year in February, spurred a frantic 2-hour search of downtown Hillsboro before he was eventually captured and taken back into custody. Washington County Sheriff's deputies said they caught up with Edi Villalobos Jr., 28, and arrested him without incident inside a nearby unoccupied apartment about 1:45 p.m. on February 28, 2023. Villalobos had entered the unit through an unlocked sliding door and was found hiding underneath a blanket in the closet of a child's bedroom. A resident had reported that someone was trying to break into the apartment below, and deputies then contacted the unit owner and learned no one was home, authorities said. Earlier in that day, deputies had removed Villalobos' shackles and allowed him to change into street clothes before potential jurors were led into the courtroom for jury selection. 2 deputies were assigned to guard him, but neither of them managed to keep him detained. Villalobos burst from the first-floor courtroom about 11:15 a.m. that February morning, after returning from a bathroom break while jurors were excused from the room, Sheriff Sergeant Danny DePietro said during a press conference. He outran the deputies, watching him as prosecutors sat stunned at an adjacent table, then rushed out the courthouse's front door. Villalobos' mother was sitting inside the courtroom when her son escaped. Villalobos brushed past at least one potential juror in the hallway, shucking off his shoes and blue-collared shirt while on the lam. Deputies had Villalobos in view twice, but eventually lost sight of him during the chase. Authorities used dogs and drones to search for him, and then got the call from the apartment resident in the 300 block of Southeast 4th Avenue. "I wouldn't call it a failure. We need to reassess how we do things," DePietro said. "Unfortunately, when it comes to removing the restraints, that's what Oregon law requires us to do." The circuit courthouse was sealed, and county staff were ordered to shelter in place during the breakout, as were nearby residents. At the beginning of March 2023, when the trial resumed, a grand jury indicted him on additional charges of second-degree escape and first-degree burglary, on top of his murder charge and additional attempted murder charge. Michael Devon Colmes had a court appearance at the Harris County Criminal Courthouse, where a judge revoked his bond and he was put into shackles. He was said to be on a bench inside a courtroom when a brawl broke out in one of the other courtrooms. Eyewitness news cameras captured that fight between the family members of a murdered teenage girl and her alleged killer and then boyfriend. HCSO Major Lynette Anderson said the panic button went off and the deputies went to take care of that. That's when the suspect took advantage of the chaotic situation and took off. How the suspect was able to get the shackles off is being investigated. According to records, Colmes was out on bond for assaulting his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his 2 children in 2022. They had reportedly been dating for more than 7 years. A judge revoked his bond and he was placed into shackles because he had reportedly violated his bond conditions by testing positive for meth and shutting off his GPS monitor. According to court documents, the bailiff instructed Colmes to sit on the arrest bench, then placed a shackle around his right ankle, and the other shackle was attached to the metal bench. At about 10 a.m. on October 18, 2023, a panic button went off because a fight broke out in a different courtroom between a convicted murderer's family and the victim's family, the Harris County Sheriff's Office said. The bailiff ran to help and no one was supervising Colmes. An attorney not representing Colmes was with one of her clients and was the only witness who saw him escape with her own eyes. "I have never witnessed anything like this," Casey Little Gonzalez, defense attorney, said. "I looked around and realized there were no bailiffs. I went out in the courtroom and said, I think that guy just escaped." At that moment, Colmes managed to kick off his shackles. He just kicked it as hard as he could multiple times, got his ankle loose, looked out the courtroom door to make sure there were no bailiffs, and just ran. Somehow, he walked out of the courthouse without anyone noticing and was on the run for 48 hours until he was arrested at a motel off of South Main Street near Post Oak, with his GPS monitor. Nicholas Bunclark bolted from Liverpool Crown Court on Tuesday, January 2, 2023, after a judge gave him a 16-month jail term. After initially denying the assault, he eventually pleaded guilty with another defendant to assaulting a man in Southport on November 19, 2022, and was given a sentence of 16 months imprisonment for the offense. But as he was being sentenced, he fled the court. As he left the building, he took off his glasses and put on a coat to try and change his appearance. It was initially thought that he had not managed to escape the court building. Guards have been seen patrolling and keeping watch outside. He even managed to get on a train and check into a hotel, but later told officers that he had spent the entire night worrying about what he had done. The following afternoon, he handed himself in at Copy Lane Police Station in Liverpool. He was apologetic and said he'd fled because he hadn't expected a custodial sentence and needed to tell his family. He said he had acted on impulse and hadn't planned it. He was rearrested and appeared at Liverpool Magistrates Court a few hours later, charged with escaping from custody. He was then committed to the Crown Court to enter a plea. He appeared before His Honor Judge Byrne, the same judge whose court he had fled from 2 days earlier. The 30-year-old held his head at his hands after learning his sentence. After a brief interaction with his mom in the public gallery, he was led towards the cells before his escape. A dramatic video from the Fresno County Courthouse on Tuesday, June 29, 2021, shows an inmate trying to escape from a courtroom. According to the sheriff's office, Brendan Brophy tried rushing out of a Fresno courtroom on that day while he was in a hearing for burglary charges. Brophy ran out after 9 a.m., but a deputy assigned to provide security for that courtroom intercepted him and got into a struggle with the fugitive in the hallway. The struggle lasted for a glorious 30 seconds. For about 10 seconds, it appeared in that CCTV footage that Brophy tried taking the deputy's gun. Brophy's failed attempt to escape the courtroom that day ended with the help of another defendant, who happened to be walking down the corridor where everything happened. The man jumped in to help the deputy get a hold of Brophy while waiting for his colleagues to come and help him. Sadly for him, as his effort to escape was in vain, Brophy is now facing new felony charges of escaping jail, using violence against an officer, and attempting to take an officer's firearm.